The Genocide Convention of 1948 defined genocide as any of 5 acts committed with the aim to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. The crimes were murdering group members, causing major physical or mental injury to them, enforcing living circumstances designated.
The crimes committed against the Rohingya since 2017 are not unfamiliar. They have only got worse in terms of severity and number, with perpetrators fueled by impunity. One recent report focused on sexual and gender-based violence, which the mission specifically stated were acts of genocide and demonstrate intent to destroy the Rohingya people. The Rohingya are minority population in Myanmar state, which is located on the country's western coast between Bangladesh and India. The Rohingya are referred to as Bengali, which is a disparaging term in this context, and are refused citizenship and the right that come with it. Since 1994, the Myanmar government has refused to give birth certificate to Rohingya children. Myanmar military, police, and paramilitary groups are engaged in long-term mass brutality, including organized massacres accompanied by sexual abuse and rape of women. Rohingya have limited freedom of movement and are corralled into detention camps and ghettos and are not allowed to travel around Myanmar without a travel permit. Their work rights and possibilities are severely constrained as a result of their lack of citizenship, and they are denied access to healthcare and education. Cause of large-scale conflict involve not only dead and wounded soldiers but also innocent. Long-term injury victims suffer from combat, rape, and torture affect individuals' ability to earn a living. Conflict often produces refugee flows both within the country and across borders. Refugees are often vulnerable to natural disaster and manipulation by combatants. The fear, distrust, and desperation can last long after the conflict is supposedly resolved. Secondly is humanitarian and human rights. When subordinate communities become aware of human rights ideals and incorporate them into their value system, their previously accepted subordination is reframed as humanitarian situation that can no longer be tolerated. This clash has the potential to get violent. This can happen over time, or a refugee of power might result in the immediate and terrible violence. Understanding the role of humanitarian as a cause is vital if violence between tribes and nations is to be decreased. Thirdly is land and property right in the peace process. Civil conflict profoundly change relationship among people. There are 3 broad processes which change the land tenure situation during conflict. First, physical separation of people from established group areas and ways of land use and tenure due to wartime restoration. Second, landholders evaluating futures or tenure system because dispute and lack of legitimate machines to resolve them. There may also be a reaction to the mix of insecurity created by conflict, the state being managed, capabilities, and the yearning for some type of social order. Identity can be deeply bound up with land for many people who find themselves in conflict situations. Some groups will take advantage of chance to push something self-determination ambition, particularly in reference to land. As those involved in armed conflicts, identity evolves to include strong hostility against an opposite group of groups. Their approach to land issue will reflect this.
Due to the global conflict of genocide, UN take several roles to solve the problem. The existence of a permanent body recommended by the Whitaker report to monitor the Genocide Convention's implementation and require states to issue reports on their compliance with the convention, as was incorporated into the United Nations optional protocol to the Conventions Against Torture. will make the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide more effective, according to William Chavez. UN Security Council Resolution 1674, adopted by the United Nations Security Council on 28 April 2006, reaffirms the provisions of paragraph 138 and 139 of the 2005 World Summit Outcome Document regarding the responsibility to protect population and from genocide, war crime, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity. The resolution committed the Council to action to protect civilians in armed conflict. In 2008, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 1820, which noted that rape and other forms of sexual violence can constitute war crimes, crimes against humanity, or a constitutive act with respect to genocide. The best way UN do to solve the genocidal conflict in the global is to prevent the genocide from happening in the country. The Special Advisor's mission is to promote tolerance and respect for ethnic, religious, and cultural diversity, as well as the protections of human rights and the promotions of peace, security, and stability. If really genocide prevention is a matter of properly managing diversity, the mandate of the Special Advisors complements the basic missions and activity of the UN system. Following the genocidal slaughter in Rwanda and Bosnia 2004, it was clear that United Nations as a slow reactionary bureaucracy failed to effectively combat the genocides. The UN's approach to the genocides was ineffective because of its aversion to military confrontation and an overall lack of organizational will to fully intervene. The Office of the Special Advisors on the Prevention of Genocide, OSAPG, strives to increase the UN's roles in avoiding genocides by collaborating with other United Nations. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon appointed Francis M. Deng to the position of Under-Secretary General on a full-time basis in 2007 and nominated Edward Luck to be Special Advisors for the duty to protect. First, raising awareness. The new UN Office for the Prevention of Genocide (UNOPG) aims to increase knowledge and raise awareness of genocide prevention. The office will assist regional organizations and government in establishing genocide prevention measures, conduct training seminars for government officials and UN workers, as well as developing a genocide prevention training. Second, alerting. The office is expected to maintain working files on situations of concern in close collaboration with the UN system, using its analysis framework to identify elements that, when combined, might lead to genocidal violence. It is aiming to identify and track harmful speech, as well as develop suggestions to prevent or mitigate its impact, advises the client on a regular basis through advisory notes and briefings, and give timely guidance to the Secretary General and, where needed, the Security Council. Third, advocating. The Office of the Special Advisors to the UN Human Rights Council is responsible for advising and Secretary General on how to prevent or stop genocide. It mobilizes the UN system and other important partners, taking into account the urgency of the crisis, and undertakes advocacy visits to countries where its presence is particularly valuable.
On August 23, 61 local, national, and international NGOs raised concern about the future and humanitarian crisis of the Rohingya refugees in Myanmar. There was no relief and fundamental operation carried out by the NGO owing the undemocratic attitude of the so-called democratic country of Myanmar. No NGO could do anything for the Rohingya Muslim affected in the Rakhine state of the country. About 400,000 Rohingya remain in Myanmar in several camps. Since 2012, the majority of them have been living in central Rakhine displacement camps without sufficient food, education, medication, or dieting. Non-government and development Organizations are not allowed to visit on a regular basis. Humanitarian action, including non-governmental organizations with unrestricted access, are required to stop this grave violation of human rights. The core cause of the crisis must be addressed first, followed by a solution, and repatriation is the only long-term solution. The repatriation, on the other hand, must be welcomed by Myanmar with full assurance of security and safety. The main cause of the atrocities against Rohingya Muslim is citizenship, which must be addressed first. It is also suggested that human rights cannot be protected without legal action against military rules and even key government officials. The case filed in the International Criminal Court, International Court of Justice, and Argentine courts should go through a rigorous legal process.
Genocide occurs when the states have poor government system and having a political upheaval. Political upheaval, according to the philosopher, is a rapid shift in the political community triggered by the establishment of state or regime via violent struggle or loss in international war. The idea underlying all of this is that political upheaval creates a setting and a political opportunity structure suited to the beginning of genocide. In the middle of political upheaval, standards of conduct between the state and its people can be redefined, allowing a genocide-minded dictatorship to pursue a new eliminationist strategy. Political upheaval, in addition, can also be a motivating force and triggering genocide. So, it is important for a state to have the right system of government and political stability. Furthermore, genocide offenders must be held responsible for their crimes in order to deter atrocities and bring victims justice. There must be no safe haven for those who commit crimes regardless of their positions. As a result, all nations should step up their assistance with the tribunal so that these fugitives can be caught and brought to justice as soon as possible. Hence, people should treat all victims as our own, regardless of their origin. Human right is the view that everyone should be treated equally with dignity, regardless of their circumstances. Nobody has the right to possess another person or to coerce them to perform under threat of punishment, compulsion. We were born free, thus everyone has an equal right to freedom, but freedom does not imply that we may do anything we choose, nor does freedom for some imply limiting the freedom of others.
In this part, we will be discussing the recommendation to remedy the problems. There are 4 useful recommendations that could effectively give a solution for the specific problems. 4 crucial points for this recommendation involves community, non-government organization, government, and the world. First, we will look at community. Crime against humanity and possibly genocide have taken place against the Rohingya, and the evidence of such crimes and who among the Myanmar military and security forces committed them has been steadily growing. Such initial accounts of Rohingya refugees collected by groups have been reinforced by comprehensive documentation efforts carried out by the United Nations and the United States. A fact-finding mission mandated by the UN Human Rights Council has carried out its own independent research, indicating evidence of grave abuses in its interim oral report. Journalists and non-government organizations have uncovered further details of the crimes committed. With all these proven solid facts, we can help the Rohingyas by raising awareness through social media platforms, by exposing and uncovering the truth regarding the Rohingya genocide crisis. With this particular action, we can help the whole world realize how this crisis is very inhumane, filthy, and disgusting. By doing this, actions by other individuals, parties, organizations, and government will come to follow in order to resolve this issue. Secondly is non-government organizations. Non-government organizations can also help to contribute to the well-being and empowerment of refugee and host communities. They could promote and protect the rights through advocacy work with international, national and local government, as well as creating channels for fundraising and donations to help the Rohingyas. The goal is to protect the safety and dignity of refugees and advocate for their safe, dignified and voluntary return to Myanmar. For example, non-government organizations can help Rohingya refugees by providing food security, livelihoods, cash, child protection, water sanitation, hygiene, and also education. These kind of action will reduce the burden as well as help the Rohingyas to continue their daily lives throughout this genocide. Thirdly is the government. The government can help to remedy the problems by establishing an indigenous investigation team to look into violations of international human rights law and human rights abuses. Next is instantly removing blockade of aid like food, medical supplies and other essential items into the Rohingya camps. The government also needs to provide access of safe passage to humanitarian and relief agencies into Rohingya camps. The government must also mediating the uplift of discriminatory policies and restrictions such as on-movement marriage, holding property, taxation, thus providing freedom and ease to live. The Constitution of Myanmar needs arbitration and requires recognizing scores of stateless people living within the country and make amendments and alterations to not only provide them citizenship status but also generate religious, legal, social and economic space for the recognition of their basic human rights. To fulfill the purpose, the 1982 Citizenship Law warrants immediate modification for removal of discriminatory clauses against Rohingya Muslims and other minorities in the region and accord them citizenship status to enable them to enjoy their fundamental rights in a civilized, democratic country. Finally is the world. All world leaders, particularly Asian leaders, should call on the Myanmar army and force them to cease their clearance operations. Every world leader who holds any meeting with the Prime Minister of Myanmar must emphasize on this brutal crisis basing upon humanitarian grounds. Regional governments like those of China, India and Bangladesh should pledge to the Myanmar government that they will provide full support and cooperation to them in locating and arresting Rohingya militants if any such evidence is found. International humanitarian architecture should play its role to allow UN investigation teams, aid workers and journalists to operate freely for welfare.
In conclusion, in today's globe, ethnic groups face a genuine threat from genocide. As a loving society, we must challenge the apathy of those who chose to disregard this terrible cleansing act. Genocide has a wide range of consequences for people ranging from perpetrators, spectators, and victims to